thank you again to Tunku Zafrul, Sido and the Deputy Minister, of course Bloomberg, and CIMB, of course. Thank you. CIMB have little choice when Zafrul is involved. But thank you very much. As mentioned by Zafrul, been a long day, but it's worth the effort. We had, I should say, excellent or fruitful meeting with President Donald Trump. We got him to dance initially so that things cool off a bit better. I was fully briefed, and the exchanges have been useful. I mean, the ride with him in the car allowed me to raise some very, very pertinent questions close to our heart on multilateralism, or the need to maintain centrality of ASEAN, particularly Malaysia, to engage with the West and the East, to go strong, formidable relations in terms of investment and trade with the United States of America. At the same time, forge a very strong new alliance with China. Oh, mind you, don't envy me on this. But at least I could share with him, frankly, some of these issues. And then to explain to him why the issue, for example, Gaza is very painful and affecting, with ramifications throughout the world, and particularly more so in this region. And also gave him the opportunity to articulate his vision, his views. But finally, during the bilateral meeting between Malaysia and President Donald Trump, went very well. We had, I think, Zafrul mentioned this today, that we managed to resolve most of the issues. We told him that, very difficult for an independent country like Malaysia, with, of course, much weaker opposition, they have 1/3 in parliament, but still very vociferous, very strong in their views, to be seen to be submitting, compliant to other powers. So I have assured him that our fundamental focus is, of course, trade and investments. And I mentioned the Bloomberg Business Summit. Yeah, and he said, why? I said, I don't know, you ask Bloomberg. And then, of course, we had the US ASEAN Summit, where extraordinary patience on the part of President Trump. Most of his advisors were a bit surprised because I took over the chair, and we followed the rules. Opening remarks by the chair, and the opening remarks by the president, and followed by all the leaders, no interruption, and then the response. You didn't see this in Sharm el-Sheikh, but it happened here. So I think ASEAN as a cohesive, formidable group did impress him. The things that we do share in common, there was consensus built on the need to maintain our centrality, to continue to engage with the United States and China and the rest. And for Malaysia, this is more pertinent, and I took, of course, the opportunity to explain Malaysia's position. The statistics of economic figures, of course, Zafrul has referred to, alluded to briefly, but I think for Malaysia, it's one of the most politically stable countries, certainly so in the region, and I don't know what you call, if 2/3 majority in parliament should be stable. In fact, when I was in the opposition, I would never believe that why should the government have 2/3 majority. But that was when I was in the opposition. Now I realize if you're stable and there's clarity in terms of policies, a clear direction. You talk about semiconductor strategy, you talk about new industrial master plan, you talk about energy transition or digital transformation. There's clarity of these policies. Once there's clarity, it's easy for policymakers, easy for the investors, both domestic and foreign investors. But we have to steer and be focused. And our initial challenge took over as Prime Minister was the effectiveness, the effective execution of policies. Because people are not familiar with the style. There is whether we need to have commissions. For the elites, we call it commissions. For the poorer segment of we call it corruption. So this with the corruption, the commission, to me is damn bloody same thing. But still, we need to correct these misperceptions and to ensure that we focus also on governance. Most economists, most elites want to talk about economic fundamentals. But to me, without good governance, economic fundamentals don't work because you do not serve the country and the community. So that has been our challenge in the last few years. And we have seen the results initially, both in terms of growth, in terms of even equity, the principles of equity. I'm very passionate about these views because I cannot rationalize. I mean, I think morally unacceptable for any government and political elite to accept gross inequities, grinding poverty in the midst of plenty. So there must be clear policy. Even then, we do shift from the conventional, traditional notion of a new economic policy where we place too much importance to racial composition to a policy based on needs. Yes, affirmative action, but based on needs. Poverty means poverty. The need for social mobility means to deal with those who need the necessary support. So these policies are made clear, and since Zafrul didn't use the text, I'm not going to refer to the text. You know, we can't have the minister outshining the prime minister. So, these are important issues to my mind. Tomorrow I'll have breakfast with Premier Lee Chiang. Yeah. Can you imagine? I was, in the private conversation with President Donald Trump, and tomorrow morning, very private breakfast with Premier Lee Chiang. I mean, that explains that Malaysia is a trading nation. Yes, we have differences, but we cannot be compelled or dictated to insist to follow any particular interest, except to represent our interests and to focus on economic fundamentals, which means business and investments. And I think the main, Zafrul referred to the fact that I'm continuing with one meeting, Mark Carney of Canada, Ramaphosa of South Africa, Antonio Costa of EU, and Lula da Silva of Brazil. Because these are regional heads, I happen to be just a coordinator here, and we will, need to focus on, if you talk about economic fundamentals, and as a trading nation, we need to explore new horizons, new markets. Traditionally, largest trade investments is with the United States. To me, it's no issue. We'll continue to do that. But at the same time, we have seen phenomenal increase of trade and investments with China. But we thought with Canada, with South Africa, with the African continent, with Latin America, there's huge enormous potential. Even within ASEAN, once we admit that this is relatively one of the freest region in the world, or a peaceful region in the world, it is the fastest growing economy in the world, what we lack within ASEAN is intra-ASEAN trade and investments. And we're now pushing that agenda ahead. ASEAN power grid, for example. Digitalization and connectivity in the region. Other than issues of food security, maritime security, and etc. Even maritime security, can you imagine? We made a deal with the United States to try and enhance our capabilities in terms of maritime. At the same time, tomorrow we'll get China to be equally involved. We are involved with India to protect the maritime stability of the Indian Ocean. It's no issue. People do talk about South China Sea, etc., etc. But I think for an emerging economy, for a trading nation in the region which is peaceful, it is our task to ensure that this region remains peaceful. We talk about the Cambodia-Thailand border crisis. Well, it's small compared to some other major upheavals, but to us it's huge. The moment there was a conflict, some shooting, then immediately all my colleagues then say, look, Anwar, let's do something. We contacted them and persuaded them come to Kuala Lumpur. And of course, President Trump also did make calls to them. And that's why we signed the accord witnessed by President Trump and Anwar, so fair. But what I want to suggest to you is that because this region is considered to be the most peaceful in the region in the world, even small skirmishes is big to us. And to me, it augurs very well for the future of this region. Similarly, this problem in Myanmar, it is still problematic. We have formulated this 5-point consensus, some of the broad parameters that all ASEAN countries have agreed to. But still, we continue to engage. I met the military junta chief twice, once in Bangkok and once in Beijing, and to tell him that no arguments, ceasefire is a must. Otherwise, no point talking. And that was a precondition for us to support them in terms of humanitarian assistance, particularly after the earthquake, the devastating earthquake, and setting up the military hospital or the field hospital. And they agreed with the terms. Yes, there are skirmishes, but certainly much smaller as compared to what happened in the last few years. We have 200,000 refugees from Myanmar or Rohingyas here. But in the last 1 year, we don't encounter such problems. And the other condition we imposed was that you must allow for complete, total access of humanitarian assistance, irrespective of their differences or political differences or groups. And they did agree. And our military hospital did not face or encounter problems in getting patients from all groups. And to my mind, is a major change. I mean, it's not satisfactory, of course. We talk about human rights, but still, to me, is a gradual progress that we have seen, and I'm quite confident that if we continue to engage, it may help to resolve. But I know this is a business conference, but the business summit can only be effective when the country is peaceful, politically stable, and we have crafted economic policies that's attractive for investments, both domestic and foreign, and conducive environment for business. That I can assure you, because I waited quite some time to become the Prime Minister and had to study hard in prison for more than 10.5 years. And so books published before 2015, most of the important works I have read. No, recent one maybe less because I didn't have that much time anymore. Because every time people buy me books, Chintong is keen to give me a book. I said, you have given me 10 years ago when I was there inside. I have all the time in the world. So anyway, thank you very much, and apologize for coming a bit late, but and having to leave. So Bloomberg, you owe me one dinner because I'm not having dinner to you tonight too. But certainly I look forward to. Thank you, Linda. I mean, you have a good Bloomberg agent here, and thank you very much. I mean, you have been very supportive. We need your support. We need your confidence. And I tell you one thing, what I have learned all these years during the trials and tribulations and hardship that I had to endure with myself, my wife, my children, my friends. What have I learned? Human dignity, integrity, and do whatever it takes to make sure that Malaysia become a very successful economy, that you can be able to serve your people, irrespective of race or creed or regions. Thank you. Terima kasih.